Welcome folks, my name is Tom Beatty. I'm the chair of the Web Design and Development program at Newmont College of Computer Science, and today we're going to do some JavaScript programming. Okay, so today we're going to create functions, and I've already set up a functions folder. I've set VS Code for it. I have created an index that loads our script.js, and then I've created a script.js file. If you are unsure how to do that, take a look at some of the earlier videos where I go through the steps. But right now we're going to create our very first function, and I'm going to call this function hello. And so we're doing it the old way. This is the pre-ES 2015 way of doing it. I'll show you the newer way soon. So we're going to call it hello, and we've got an open and close parentheses. That's where we would pass in any sort of parameters. And then we open our curly braces, and inside here is the code that will run whenever we call hello. And so I'm just going to say console.log hello everyone. And to run that, I can just say hello. So that will call the function. Let's see what that looks like. And boom, hello everyone. And it's doing that because we called the function and it runs what's in here. Now, if I wanted to, I could pass in a parameter here. Maybe I pass in a name. And in a case like that, I could say hello plus. Remember, plus, when you deal with strings, concatenates, it adds it together. And I'll say hello name. So now we can pass in Bob as a parameter, which will then be assigned to name, and we can console log hello name. So let me save that and run it. Hello Bob. And I can, once I've created this function, I can use it over and over again. I could say hello Sally. Notice I used single quotes here. It's probably best to use the same convention, but I just want to show you that you can use double or single quotes in JavaScript. Hello Bob, hello Sally. And so we have our first function. Now, you could also create a function. This is maybe a little less useful function. We'll create an add function, and it takes an A and a B. And we'll return A plus B. So it'll add these two together. That seems a little bit silly, but let's go ahead, and since we're returning it, that's actually what value is going to come back when you use this add function. So I could console log add 3, 4, and notice it's not console logging in the function, we're returning it, and so it's going to return that value in place of this. So that should give us 7. So hello Bob, hello Sally, and 7. Now, there's a new way of doing functions. They've changed the syntax as of ES 2015, and it's much cleaner and tidier, I think. So we'll define the function as a variable. And you could do this before, but the syntax was a little bit different. It was called creating an anonymous function. So I'm going to create a const. The const is going to be called add. And we use add equals A comma B. And we put an arrow there with an equals and a greater than symbol. They call this arrow function syntax. And so we have created a const that is add. It takes in A and B. some people will, from other programming languages, might say that this looks like a lambda, and they're not wrong. So this works essentially the same way. And so if I refresh, you'll see the values are still the same, and it's 7. And from here on out, for the most part, I'm going to be using these arrow functions. Now, I'm going to create a couple more functions here just so that you understand how this all works. So we created a hello function. Let's create a howdy function. Well, I'm just going to call it a greeting function. And if you have no parameters, you would just put an open and close paren like that. And we could console.log hello. And so now if I run this, I can just say greeting, save that, refresh, and it says hello. If I wanted to pass in one parameter, you could pass in the name and say hello plus name. You want to have a space after the hello there, just so that there's a space between hello and the name. And that would mean it takes one parameter, so we could say greeting Harry, and it says hello Harry. If we want to get a little more complex, well, let me point this out. So at the moment, I've got one parameter. It works just fine, and I've got these parentheses. Now, if you have no parameters, you have the open and close parentheses. If you have one parameter in one of these arrow functions, although it works with parentheses, convention is usually to remove the parentheses. So this actually still works. And it still says hello Harry. If you have two parameters, two or more parameters, let's say, we'll call this the greeting. It takes the greeting and the name, and it's going to put these together. So I'm going to say the greeting plus a space there plus the name. So now we can say howdy Harry. But if you have two parameters, you have to have those parentheses again. So if you have no parameters, you put an open and close parenthesis with no parameters. If you have one parameter, usually people leave the parentheses off. If you have two or more parameters, you have to have the parentheses again. I know that's a little unusual. It tends to be how you'll see the code done. Oh, I got an error here. The greeting is not defined. Oh, it would help if I spelled it correctly. There we go. And we pass in howdy and Harry, and it says howdy Harry. Now, something else I'll show you. I've told you that you can use double quotes or single quotes. What I haven't told you is that in ES 2015 and later, you can also use backticks. And let me show you what a backtick is. It's the character in the upper left-hand corner of your keyboard. It shares the key with the tilde, and it looks like that. So these are backticks. And backticks kind of make things magical, because instead of having to concatenate strings, I can do string templates. So I'm going to say, put some backticks here, and if I do a $sign with curly braces, I can plug in the greeting directly. I can put a space, put another $sign with curly braces, and plug in the name. And it's actually taking these variables and plugging them in where you've got these $ curly braces. And I could make it a little more complex. So I could say, let's go ahead and put this in quotes. And so now it'll throw up the quotes saying, howdy, says Harry. And so I can save this. And magically, I've got quotes in there. So anyway, those are some real basic functions that gives you just a sample idea of what you can do with them. You can get a lot more complex with functions, obviously. The idea behind a function, though, is it does one particular task that you need to do over and over. If you're ever having to rewrite code again and again, it's probably best to create a function for it to make it easier. It makes things reusable. So there you have it. Next we will move on and talk a little bit about classes. Alright, if you like this video, please hit subscribe. Subscribe to my channel. I will provide more content in the future and keep it entertaining for you. Thanks a lot.